Cool. Yay. Hey, everybody, welcome to this interview with Kishshana Palmer. She's going to be speaking. Hello.
Hello. And hey, y'all.
Hi, y'all. So, Kishshana has spoken at my fundraising career conference and the Nonprofit Leadership Summit for, oh my golly, 4 years. And every year she just inspires me with the quality of her presentation and how much she knows about our sector. And I mean, it's incredible. So she's way more accomplished than I am. She has multiple degrees and multiple certifications.
Why are you going to say that out loud like that?
She's so good. So, I mean, you're BoardSource certified?
Yeah, I'm a BoardSource certified trainer, AFP, which is Association for Fundraising Professionals, master trainer. I teach the CFRE refresher course. I'm going to be teaching fundamentals. And so, teaching is my jam, y'all. So just give me the content that I need to do and teach and put me with folks who are ready to learn. And it is, like magic happening. And that doesn't matter if it's a board of directors who's like, we need to fundraise. Or if it's staff that's like at their point of inflection and they really just need someone to support them through that time and really help them figure out what their next steps are going to be. Or if it's an individual, whether it's an executive leader, a senior leader, or even middle manager who's just looking to grow in their skills, in their leadership, in their management, in their life, then, that's the kind of work that gets me excited. So yes, I got all the degrees, and such.
And certifications.
Right. But what I am majoring in right now is one of my good girlfriends says she has a business called Majoring in Motherhood. I am majoring in motherhood as I am the solo mom to a preteen. Y'all pray for me, okay? Compared to that job, the rest of this work is light work.
Oh man, I love that you love that job so much because it's a lot of work.
It's so much.
But it's beautiful.
Totally.
So at the Nonprofit Leadership Summit, Kishshana, you're going to be talking about how to build a better board and how to find new board members. So for people here who are kind of like shaking their heads over their board members, for people who are like, what does it really mean when you say that? Do you want to like elaborate on building a better board, what that means?
Totally. I mean, so building a better board assumes that your board is fair to middling. And you need some help, or you have a good board and you just want to be able to step up to the next level. And then I know I have my friends in the back who are like, and my board is terrible, help me, please, someone. So what I'm going to try to do during our time together, doing our conference, and I love this conference, Maz. This is my favorite conference to do. This is the only virtual one that I get excited about. And so it is, I get more excited than I do about my own, which is hilarious. So for me, building better boards really thinks about how do we leverage the volunteer leaders that have chosen to help us grow our organizations, help our organizations to become sustainable, help us to have either deep or widespread impact, depending on what our mission is. How do we empower them to be able to govern in such a way that our organizations continue to flourish and grow? And how do we leverage them so that we can tap into the best of their resources so that our organization can be the beneficiary of that and also be propelled to do greater work. So our missions can be propelled. And it looks different for different boards. For me, there's lots of different schools of thought around how to build better boards. And I know all the mechanics, y'all. So I can say step 1, recruit. Step 2, step 3, sure. And we're going to do a little bit of that. But what I really want us to be thinking about is what do we need to do as leaders on the teams when we don't always get to pick our boards and we need to lead with influence because we don't lead by position. And for us to have a good sense of what the roles and responsibilities are between teams and between boards so that we can go into conversations like, what we should do? We should do an event. that you can go in arms to say, hey, hold on. Here's what we need to be talking about, and do that from a place of confidence, and do that from a place of authority, and do that from a place of growing together. And so that to me is sort of like my whole ethos around growing better boards, really putting the people, both you on team and your board, at the center of the relationships that are necessary in order to get those folks to be able to do what they are so excited to do, which is help grow your organization.
Wow. So there's so many things inside of what you just said. I want to just kind of raise my hand here and say, well, I'm a founder, Kishshana, and I like that my board is weak, because then I can do whatever the hell I want.
Get over yourself, sister. You heard it here first. Don't hire Kishshana to be your governance trainer, because let me tell you, friend, you will not like me at the end. No, ma'am, and no, sir. Get over yourself. First of all, this organization does not belong to you anymore. The minute you file that 501c3 certification, it belongs to the community. That's for greater good. And so I think there's a lot of like, mine, my baby, mine, that goes into, exactly, Maz, that goes into founders holding on to their organizations. Once you establish a 501c3, you have the responsibility as founder, as senior executive, as chief executive, to make sure that you put people around the table who are going to care that your organization is healthy, who are going to care that your mission is actually being activated, and who are going to care that the people that actually carry out the work are healthy and the right folks to be doing that job. Now, the board's really only responsible to you, Maz. Okay, founder, hello. And you are charged with your team, but there has to be some simpatico and some understanding about what that means. So you don't actually want a weak board if you want your organization to grow over time, and if you want to have a strong culture over time. Because if you want your board to be weak, then I bet money that secretly on the inside, Maz, because you never say it out loud, you want your team to be weak too. Mm. And a great leader does not want to be surrounded by yes people. Mm. And that's just what it is. You don't get better as a leader. You don't lead with love. You don't become a transformational leader that sees your mission like in action on turbo speed and sees your people fired up about the work that they're doing, whether they're in IT, in finance, in program, in procurement, in development, and communications. Your folks are not going to be on fire if you're not transformational. And you're not going to be transformational if you want weaklings around you, period. And that starts with your board. You got to have that board. You got to have that board that really has that shared mindset.
So, but how would I get a board with a shared mindset? Because they're all just random volunteers.
Sure. You have to decide what are the values that you want to be able to espouse as a leader, and what are the organizational values that you want to be able to drive in terms of building your culture. And you have to be laser focused and clear as day about what those are, so that when you go out and start talking to folks about the work you're doing, that they feel compelled to want to jump in 2 hands, 2 feet into board service. Because your board members typically are going to be your volunteers at some point. They're in terms of the actual doing of the work, depending on where your organization is in terms of its life cycle. Your board members are your donors, and they're your donors that know your business. And so you want to be able to really be thoughtful about the type of folks that you want to be able to know all your bits and your goods. As my mom would say, all your bits and your wiggles and your goods, right? All the insides of how your organization works to an extent, and how your organization plans to grow. And so you've got to be able to look for folks who are seeking you too. And with the tools that we have right now, first of all, if you're a founder, you should be out there mixing and mingling in your community, not just in the mission space that you're in. So if you're with animals, and not just with folks in the humane world, if you're with the environment, not just folks in the environment world, but really mixing and mingling with other executive leadership. Getting to see other organizations' gala so you can meet their people and their folks, becoming known in the community, making sure you yourself serve on a board, so that you can actually be out there. And as you're out there, spreading the good news about your organization and the impact that you're having, you will meet folks who are like, oh, you should talk to Kishshana. She'd be great for your board. Maybe, I don't know if she's interested. And then you want to get on the phone with somebody like a Kishshana who goes, I really don't have time to be able to serve right now. Your organization sounds great. I'd be happy to give. And then you get to say to her, that's awesome. Do you think there are 2 or 3 people I could be talking with right now who you think would also be interested and might have the time? And so you continue to foster those relationships. So as an ED, you've got to get out there and start shaking hands and kissing babies. You got to get out there. But then in the virtual space, the world is also your oyster. What you post on your social as a thought leader for your space, what you're seeing on things like LinkedIn and other social media platforms where folks are seeking, they're raising their hand and going, yes, it's on their profile. I would like to do board service. Are you actually culling that from the types of folks who are interested in the types of work that your organization does? And so, fortunately and or unfortunately, you've got to do some of that heavy lifting if you want the kind of board that is a better board. And also if you want the board that's going to help make sure that your organization gets to where you had imagined it and beyond.
That is such a good answer. I love that. I love that. Like, that's exactly the kind of thing people need to hear. And so some people say that you should have a lawyer and an accountant on your board. And when I was at a domestic violence agency, they made sure to have that on their board. Is that something that you would say, okay, just sort of fill out a list of the kind of job that you want the person to have? Or would you say don't do it that way?
I would say you have to work with what you've got within your organization. For me personally, I like to map out who do we need to have around the table to be able to have the most robust conversation we can have. Mm-hmm. And that means, do folks who sit around the table mirror the folks who we serve? Do we have folks around the table that have had a personal life experience or been involved in life experience that our mission activates for them? For the functioning aspects of our organization, particularly around running our organization, do we have folks around the table that when we pull out documents, everybody's eyes aren't going to glaze over because they've never seen it before? And so really answering those questions, some of them are yes, no, some of them are yes, but, some of them are no, but, allows you to be able to think broadly about who you might need in your organization. And it doesn't confine you to just checking off a box.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you get to be able to really talk that through and think that through and create a framework that works well for your organization. So for some organizations, it could be like, we want somebody, a lawyer, an accountant, somebody in marketing, somebody in sales, somebody in HR, somebody in operations, bada bing. Mm-hmm. You also have to remember that there are lots of professionals who don't want to volunteer for the work they do every day. But having that expertise might allow for some conversations to run a little bit more smoothly, and they will be happy to weigh in, but they don't want to run that thing. Like, I'm one of them. I don't want to join a board to run fundraising. Mm-hmm. I'm a recovering fundraiser, as you know, Maz. And so, every time they pull me out, every time I get out, they try to pull me back. Oh my God.
I know.
Oh my God, I'm tempted. I love fundraising so much. But it is one of those things that I actually like to volunteer on boards to do other things. I like to do governance. I really enjoy it. I mean, it is a thing that for me, I would do for free. Like, I just love it. And so I love the governance work. I love the marketing work. And so, yes, I'll chair up that committee. Yes, I'll help your team member and release some stress off of him or her around putting together your strategy and your planning. So you've got to be able to not just get so focused on Betty the CPA that you can't see. Betty the CPA does not want to do that work. She actually wants to flex her wings another way, flex her muscles another way. I love that. Spread your wings, y'all, and flex your muscles. And I said,
flex your flight muscles.
Flying and flexing.
I'm gonna flex on it.
That's it. Flex and fly. Come on. Drop down and get your ego on, girl. That's it. Hey, y'all weren't ready for that, okay? We're ready for the eagle. Come on. Yes, this is why you can't put me on the video.
Yes. No flex zone.
Yeah, no flex zone. I love that. No, seriously, guys. Like, one of the things that I hate to see is when we are so prescriptive that we are directive in how organizations should build out their boards. I think that we need to spend more time asking detailed, deeper questions and going to the end of the line to answer those questions about what our organization needs in order to be able to survive, and then move from surviving to sustaining, and then move from sustainability to growth, and then through that point of inflection when you have growing pains again, and so forth and so on, through the cycle of organizational growth. I think we really have got to spend a little bit more time doing that and not be so rushed to figuring out what to do about the board itself. That's part of building a better board, to have a good sense of the foundation of where you are, where you hope you'd like to go, where the gaps feel like they are, and then allow for conversation to fill those gaps, and for people to fill those gaps, and for resources to fill those gaps. So that's my thought process on that.
Wow. I just have one more question, because I've noticed a lot in conversation with people, when they don't know a word, they don't tell you that they don't know a word, and they're afraid of appearing dumb. And this word, I think, that you said that some people may not know is governance.
Yeah.
Could you tell me, because I'm ignorant, like, I think governance probably means like visioning for the organization and not getting involved in the minutiae of the day-to-day, but what in your mind, what does that mean?
Yeah, governance is one of those fancy words that says things like, I actually looked it up because I figured that would come up. The action or manner of governing. So a word that answers a word.
Thanks a lot, dictionary.
Great. Also, if we were in King James day, it would be sway or control. Neither of those are quite right. If you think about from the business perspective, governance really is around establishing policies and the continued and ongoing monitoring of their implementation within an organization by their governing body, so by that board of directors. And it includes sort of like the tools, mechanisms, processes, systems, pick a word, any word, that's required to balance the power of the board itself with what they need to do to make sure the organization is sustainable. And it also injects their primary duty of care in enhancing the prosperity and viability and visibility of the organization. So in a sense, governance is really about, if you think of a bowling alley, for those of y'all who are watching, you can see my hands here. For those of y'all who are listening, I'm doing the, like, when you're at the airport and you're going doo doo with the hands that are giving directions on the runway. When you think about the bumper car, the bumper rails, when you go bowling when you're a little kid, they put the railings up so that the bowling ball can bounce from side to side and the kid can feel confident when the ball goes in, right? Governing well and governance itself, if you imagine, is sort of like having those bumper rails up, making sure that within a confine that is established, that is agreed upon, that has a systematized approach, that you're able to make sure the organization is growing, prosperous, viable, healthy, and that the folks who are within it are carrying out the mission and the strategic direction of that organization. Did I get to it?
I think you did. Yeah, there's a lot there. So it sounds like being a board member is more complicated than just showing up to a meeting. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
We're not here for you. Listen, y'all, if you're just here for the snacks, on this board, that you have signed up for the wrong activity. Okay.
Yeah, because if the nonprofit gets into fiscal trouble, you are legally responsible to discharge their debt. Yep. And some people don't realize that when they sit on a board, like, oh, you mean if I don't watch the budget and we go in the hole, I'm responsible.
Correct. And that's why part of building a better board is that individuals need to understand what board service really is and what they as individuals and then collectively as a group are supposed to really be doing in order to ensure that the organization is run well.
Well, I don't want to give away too much of your session, but that sounds just like exactly.
Come on, y'all have to come on in.
Yeah.
Okay? Y'all have to come on in.
Yes.
To get some of the goodness
Yes, get in
that I have.
there. Come on in. So, Kishshana, where can people find you if they, aside from the summit, if they want to like get
Absolutely.
more from your wisdom?
I'm Kishshana of the internet.
Just look up Kishshana on Google.
I know, right? You can find me on all social platforms. I typically hang out on Instagram and LinkedIn the most, and then I'm also on Twitter because people tag me and stuff, and I'm like, what is happening on Twitter? So any of the platforms you can find me at Fund FUNDDIVA. So at Fund Diva. If you want to check out my site, you can check me out at Kishshana KishshanaCo.com. So KishshanaCo.com or fabulouslyfundraising.com. They will both get you to the same place. And I will be excited to connect with you guys and chit chat, and I respond to just about all my messages. And I would love to be able to hear your questions if you have any coming into the conference, so that I can always, do a little tailoring if I need to for the audience, because I'm excited to be able to talk to y'all about how to build better boards.
Yay! Awesome.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good.